2021 was the year where we got the best performance per watt CPU on the market, the Apple M1. But it was also the year that Intel got themselves into a lot of trouble, and comparing both, even for me, a non-Apple fan, I see it as a clear winner by far. But it's naive to think that days of Intel and AMD are over. And now, about this. As consumers, this year we finally got the new Apple CPUs, the M1 and M1 Pro and M1 Max, but also on enterprise, as Amazon recently raised up and started to have the M1 architecture to rent on Amazon Web Services. On the other side, Qualcomm launched their new CPUs and presented their plans quite recently at their event. And what do they all have in common, you might ask? Well, the ARM architecture and processors, of course. But it's quite naive to think that the days of old Intel and AMD are over. They still rule the CPU market, and even with the mobile world, they both amass a lot of customers. They are completely different from the ARM architecture, as they are based on the Legacy 6 platform, the x86 as we know it, and Intel is trying to move into the RISC-V architecture. But why? Why not investing on a fast horse, the ARM? Well, Intel invested a lot of money, infrastructure, sourcing, and a ton of transistors to turn its 6-like exterior into something that looks more RISC-like internally. That eats up power and transistors, and we can see that on recent laptops being launched with new Intel CPUs. They eat a lot of power. Which brings me to the topic, performance per watt. And why is that Intel Innovator's Dilemma problem? We've seen how Apple, with the M1 architecture based on ARM v8, consumes way less power than any of its rivals, and above all delivers the same or even better performance. That's important on small devices and even on laptops. It creates this new category of, well, not overheating or even heating at all laptops. And that's what really amazed me on my M1 MacBook and then on my M1 iPad. Top-of-the-class performance whilst using 20% of the power that competitors use. So why is this the Intel Innovator's Dilemma? Well, because it's hard for Intel to compete with their own products. For Intel to have something similar, it would have to actually compete against themselves, build new operations, license ARM architecture, and then build it against their current products. And that's hard, very hard to achieve indeed. Only GM and Ford did that in the past, and they barely survived. But now we are seeing the same with the electrical cars shift. Everyone is facing the same dilemma. So, exiting the x86 market, it's a hard thing to do. If Intel decides that ARM is a feature, then it makes no sense to continue investment on x86 development. However, abandoning the development of x86 risks AMD doubling down and stealing most of the x86 market share. Thus, Intel is deprived of crucial income in the midst of a transition phase. It's a difficult crossroad for Intel. So what would be the solution then? Well, I don't see both AMD and Intel entering the ARM market anytime soon. What I would predict is that Apple will continue to rule the performance per watt market, advance on their own chips, integrate the ARM v9 architecture, and go for the GPU market. And that's what's missing at Apple. Meanwhile, Intel will struggle to have something even closer to Apple's new architecture. And Microsoft, with Windows of course, isn't helping the WinARM market. Windows 11 on ARM is a joke and requires a lot of effort, moving from x86 to ARM, a thing that Apple saw as an opportunity and built the Rosetta platform. And you, what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. See you on the next episode.